that's something I wasn't willing to do. You know, I'd rather be dad than, you know, captain.
Yeah.
So there's been so many ideas and ways and options and stuff. You know, people walk in my store, they have no clue what they want. America's headed back that direction, you know, to I believe, to slowly but surely, you know, to knowing where their food comes from, wanting wholesome food, and even, you know, beef prices keep, you know, getting crazy, and people are going to have to eat out of their own pasture.
Welcome back to the Wealthy Cowboy Show. I'm your host, Crockett Carruthers, and today we're going to talk about beef. We've got Austin Tarrant on, who is in the beef business in a couple different ways, and he's also come about it in a odd way. He's in the aviation business at first and decided to take the leap and go back to the country life and get off in a new venture. So how's it going?
Man, it's good. It's good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yes, sir. I want to get into your background. So tell us a little bit about where you came from, and then we'll get up to where you are now.
Yeah. So I graduated high school in La Pointer ISD. I had a whopping like 23 kids in that class. I'll never forget telling the teachers, you know, I don't need to listen. I don't need to do this. I was bouncing off the walls. I was that kid, you know, and you know, they're like, yeah, you got to know this. And I'm like, I'm going to be a helicopter pilot. You know, I mean, it's since I was 10, you know, just told people I'm going to be a helicopter pilot. And, you know, from La Pointer, if any of you listeners know where that's at, I mean, that's out in the middle of nowhere. You know, we didn't know what a helicopter was.
Not many pilots around there.
No, I don't think. I think one in probably the past 20, 30 years before me had, you know, gotten into an aviation career, and so just odd, you know, for me to say that, but I did. I graduated high school and. You know, was told that, hey, well, you know, where do you want to go to school? Played baseball, loved all the sports, you know, and had a slim chance of going and playing college ball, you know, pitching and you know, playing second stuff. But in baseball, I said I'm gonna go to flight school. So the first time ever in anything that got off the ground was my discovery flight for helicopter school. So it's just, you know, I loved it. You know, it's like riding a motorcycle. I mean, who doesn't? You know, or who wouldn't enjoy that? And so, yeah. I mean, I was just this kid trying to figure out how to fly helicopters. So, I figured it out. I ended up working for the company that trained me for about 4 years, and in that time, I had met this girl. Her name's Jenna, love of my life, and I suckered her into going out with me, you know, so every weekend I was back home, you know how that is. And so a few years later, I'm flying and everything's going good. We end up getting married. She comes to Fort Worth with me, and I kind of got to a point that the helicopters I was flying, the guy that owned them, he was managing some jets as well. And we helicopter fun. We did everything. We did hog hunts, power line patrol, pipeline patrol, you know, VIP charters. So it wasn't the same thing every day. You know, it was pretty cool. But I just, you know, I wanted something else. Was kind of getting to that, you know, 4 years, 5 years doing something. I was a little burnt out. And anyway, he was managing these airplanes. And he said, I caught wind of one of these guys, and helicopter pilots and airplane pilots, they kind of got this thing going on, you know.
A little rivalry.
Yeah, it was like unspoken rivalry. And I told him, I said, I could teach a monkey to fly one of those. I said, why don't you let me fly them? And he said, go get your stuff, go get your ratings. And so I actually went and bought my very first airplane. That's me. I'm just like head first, like, you know, just dive in. So I bought a Cherokee 6-300, never forget it. And tail number was 4208 Romeo. Didn't have an engine in it, needed an engine. So we got it overhauled, got the engine put in, and I had a buddy that was a flight instructor. And he's like, man, I'll ride with you, on my days off, and we'll just go places.
Did you buy the plane before you got
Yeah,
certified?
I didn't know how to fly it.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to fly it. Yeah, so bought the plane, had a buddy go with me, and to fly it and make sure like everything worked. And he was like, he said, man, I'll just on my days off and stuff, he was an instructor, so he was able to teach. He said, I'll come with you. We'll go places and just fly around, and I'll teach you as we do it, and kind of make it fun. And I was like, man, like I kind of need to get back to feeding my family. Like I need to get a job. And so we did that about every single day and went and saw some cool places. But 4 months later, I had every rating in an airplane as well as a helicopter. And it was kind of unheard of, especially for me, not being military or anything like that. A lot of people had assumed I was, doing that. I remember, going to CAE, which is the institution that they train you at, it's where they train all your airline pilots, and so you have to get your overall ratings and certificates, and then you have to go get a specific rating for that airplane that you're going to be flying when you get into the jets and stuff. And so that's called a type rating. So I had to get the type rating, and when I got there, I think I was, how old was I? I was probably 23, 22, something like that. And there were, people looking at me like, what in the world? Like, what's this dude doing in here, And so, but I went to go get just my second in command, and which is you can just fly right seat, you can log the time, but you got to get up enough time to where you can become pilot in command. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting in this room with all these people, and about the third day of this class, and they're all talking about the pilot in command stuff, and I was the only one in there getting the second in command. And so I asked the instructor, the teacher, I'm like, hey, what's the difference? What, are they going to go off and do another class, and I gotta, I'll be done, or what's? And they're like, oh no, it's just you take a different test at the end. And I was like, well, let's just
might as well,
right? Like I'd taken, 5 or 6 check rides is what they call them, and in the past 4 months, I was like, let's take another test. Who cares? So anyway, so I ended up getting that, and after that, 3 days later, I was 38,000 feet headed to Teterboro, going to take some women shopping. So it was a cool thing. I did that for probably about 2 years. Did that. I built a cool business. I was flying like 11 different. I had like 11 clients.
And how was that? How was that business? Did you have your own deal, like your own aviation company? You may remember Casey Mock from episode 17. Casey runs a very successful real estate team, Mock Ranches Realty, that specializes in farm, ranch, and land realty. Since 2014, they've sold nearly $1 billion in Texas farm and ranch land, and they were named Recreational Land Broker of the Year in 2023 by the Land Report and Realtors Land Institutes. They don't just list and forget. They take a consultative approach to both buying and selling and make sure everyone is satisfied. Check out Mock Ranches Real Estate Group.
Yeah, so Tarrant Aviation was that entity, and so we managed and crewed the planes for the owners. So say if you owned a jet, and obviously most none of these guys know how to fly them, so they would find I was just a contract pilot, and if I couldn't do it, I had a pool of 5 or 6 guys that could go do it. Mm-hmm. So it was a really cool deal. You could go, no, I don't want to go to work today, and you could call in a buddy and hope they could go.
Yeah.
But what really stuck with me was it was a job that you had to go to. And I'll never forget, these guys were great. They were oil field guys. I became good friends with them. They wanted to get home to their family just as fast as I did. And so it was a cool gig. We had the chance to move back to our hometown, my wife was raised in Connecticut and Georgia most of her life. Her family has got roots in East Texas, LaRue, where I'm from. And so I was friends with her family, you know, while she was living in Connecticut. And so that's kind of how we got intertwined there. But we had a friend that had a house, and it's been on the market, and been on the market for like 4 years. And you know, Jenna's on my wife. She's on the internet, and she's always thinking about how to get back home. And that's nowhere near, you know, my train of thought. And so she found this house, and it was some family friends, and she ended up calling them, and they were like, "Hey, we'll rent it to you. You know, we'll rent this thing to you, and you can just come down here and try it out. You know, no strings attached. If you like it, and you know, buy it. You know, that's kind of what their angle was." And so we went down there. Kind of against my will. We had a couple of deep discussions about it, and went down there, looked at the house. It was a beautiful house. It was a old ranch style house, way too big for us. It was like 3,400 square feet. You know, my dad, he'd done real estate and flipping houses and remodels and stuff, and it was on 28 acres. And I said, I could live here. You know, we could live here for a little bit. So we move in. I'm still working in Fort Worth, you know, and driving back and forth. And, oh, man, I bet we were there for a month and a half. We get the house set up, you know, all of our furniture in it and everything. And real estate agent starts coming through, showing the house. You know, I was like, gosh. So my buddy called me that owned the house. And he said, I got an offer on this house. And he's like, it's a serious offer. He said, we're going to take it. And I was like, no, don't, like, hold on. Like, give me just a little bit of time. And he said, man, I'll give you 3 or 4 days. You know, he said, get back with me. Let me know something. So I went to work, you know, and didn't say much to the wife. I didn't want her, you know, really freaking out. And so I was, you know, about 2 days in. And I told Jenna, I said, they got an offer on this house, you know, and she's, oh, man. So I come home the next night from work. I'd been up there, you know, I'd been gone for probably 2 days working, and I come in, and it was late. I'll never forget it. It was late. I walked in the door, and the kitchen light was still on, which was, you know, I figured they'd all be in bed. She'd be in bed by now, and dog was still outside. And I went in the kitchen, and she's sitting on the counter with a pregnancy test in her hand. And I go, oh, man.
Life's about to change.
Yeah. I said, what is that? You know? And she said, I'm pregnant. And I said, well, good deal, you know? And I said, we just bought a house, by the way. And so that's kind of how we got back to East Texas. Just a total God thing. Then
it was time to figure something else out.
Yeah. So we got down here. And, you know, we lived there. I worked in Fort Worth still for a while. I've got family. I was actually up there today. I've got family in Fort Worth. And so I would come up, I would stay with them. And, you know, the night before, because we would have departures at like 6 a.m., 5 a.m., you know, and we'd be back by 4 o'clock or something in the evening. But a 1-day trip for me became a 2-day trip. Mm-hmm. You know, and then, 3-day trip was a 5-day trip. It was just, and so.
And I'm sure that was a good income, you know, being a pilot, I'm sure.
Oh, it was a great income.
But it just, you're still tied to it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're, you know, and during that transition, I had a man and, you know, we'd kind of talked about business advice and stuff like that. But the one thing this cat told me, was sitting in the back of that airplane, and I looked up to those guys. They'd made it, you know, they had their own jet, and they were, you know, I was their glorified taxi driver. I shared all my entrepreneurial ideas with him, and he looked at me one day and he said, Austin, he said, you're going to do it. He said, you're going to make it one day. He said, but you're never going to end up in the back of one of these things if you're sitting in the front of them.
Yeah.
And I said, dang. I said, you're right. And it probably wasn't 3 weeks later. I just pulled the plug. said, I couldn't. And there was a few other you know, my dad had gotten sick. You know, little boy was here, my firstborn Bowen, you know, he was here, and it was just, boy, you'd have to tear him off your arm, you know, to leave, and a few different things. But I said, you know what? I said, I feel like God's calling me to do something different. And which is tough. You know, like, man, different sucks. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that, you know, we kind of just, I kind of just fell into it. Almost had to. So I went back to doing what I knew, you know, cattle, horses, and what I truly loved. You know, I'd lived the city life, and I had, bless you. And I had, you know, done all the running and gunning, you know, one could do by the time you're 24, you know, 23, 24. And one of the biggest things too was all the horror stories you'd hear. You know, a man was 55 and he's been divorced 3 times, and, you know, just like got kids
from the guys in the plane.
Yeah, yeah. And so there was just,
they made a bunch of money, but they sacrificed their family for
exactly. And that's something I wasn't willing to do. You know, I'd rather be dad than, you know, captain.
Yeah.
So yeah, the move back home was a great idea. And, you know, from there, I didn't know how I was going to do, but I was like, man, I got to make this work.
Yeah.
You know, it feels good. It feels good to be home.
Start looking for opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the first thing I did was, you know, I decided I was never going to do something that I didn't love, you know, from that point forward. I feel like I'd wasted enough time on something that I enjoyed, but I didn't love and have a passion for it. You know, I liked the money, I liked the travel, I liked all that, but, you know, those things are, you know, they're not nothing when you do them by yourself. Mm-hmm. And so, being home was cool, but I still had to eat. Mm-hmm. And, so I went back into cattle and did everything you could. I'm talking about feeding weigh cows to cow calf, you know, preconditioning yearlings. I tried everything, and, you know, made money. But it wasn't, obviously it wasn't the same money, you know, and there was always the land issue and the hay issue. And it's like, dude, how do you know, it's like just this revolving wheel. Man's life revolves around a bale of hay. It's like, man, that's kind of sucks, you know? And so, I did cattle, bought some cattle. We turned them out. I actually started a flight school, in Tyler for a short amount of time. Bought a couple planes, put them out there, and I was going to teach other people how to fly. Flop. You know, it just wasn't, it was not all that I thought it was going to be. Yeah. It was just an excuse to buy a couple airplanes, you know what I mean? It was really like, okay, that didn't go over so well. Made it out of that with my, you know, my teeth intact. And I bought hay equipment. I said, man, I'm gonna make it in the hay business, you know. Could have, but it was kind of the same world that I was in the airplanes, you know. You can't really delegate that stuff. Yeah. You know, unless you got family or somebody that really cares. I mean, you know, I bought brand new equipment, and, you know, we're out there working on it. And so it's just, that was a delegation issue. And, so I had those cattle, and I started slaughtering a couple of them, and, you know, we ate it at the house. That's what we did. And people come over, where you get this meat? You know, so I, you know, killed a cow, and I said, man, that's cool. And I was like, yeah, I mean, you know, it's where your meat comes from. And so people started asking questions, and, hey, can I get some? And, you know, I'd kind of give a little out here and there, some to the family. And I just, like, light bulb, you know, it was like, dude, I could sell beef. You know, I could run cattle, right? I could sell, I could breed the calves, breed the heifers and keep them back. I could feed the steers and, so I had this whole thing figured out overnight. And so I started doing that. Started, killing calves. And then what we would do is I had a cargo trailer and I would just go to these shows. I'd got my sticker on the cargo trailer and everything. And I had deep freezers in the deal. And so I would go and I would sell beef, to people. And that was great. It worked out, a lot of hustle involved with that. Cause by the time I was doing it, so was everybody else, like it was just the thing, to do at the time. And, after, I don't know, probably 6 months of doing that, I was like, dude, this is not like this is for the birds.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lot of work.
Still very labor intensive.
Exactly. And I'm not lazy, but I grew up, I'm talking about laboring, there was not, I wasn't told to get up and go outside and find something to do. Like we were working, and all my friends, like they never came to my house. Like it was not, my house was not the house to come stay the night at, like, cause we were up in the morning and we were late at night, we were working, and, but that was one of those things that taught me, I'd tell my dad, I'm going to work smarter and not harder, and so, but it was just, again, labor intensive. So I opened a meat market. I told my wife, we're going to do a storefront. She said, that's an awful idea. Like, that's a bad idea. Like, you think that going from shop to shop and do like, that's hard. Like, you got to be there and you got to, and so we opened this place up about 2 years ago. And probably a week from today, we're going to expand and over double the size that we are. So it's just been a total God thing, man. Like total, it's like, I tell people all the time, like, I'm too dumb. I can't make this stuff up, like, and, so it's been a cool journey.
And how was that once you finally found the meat market? Was it just immediately you were like, this is the deal, this is what I need to pursue, or were there a lot of challenges there that kind of held you back?
There was a lot of challenges. I didn't at the time I knew zero about beef. I knew how to raise cattle, but I didn't know nothing about beef. That's a whole different conglomerate, and so when I got into the beef, it was pretty challenging. My biggest challenge was finding somebody that could teach me. These butchers are few and far between. A true butcher that can take a carcass and can cut everything off of it. And that's kind of scary, and it really opened my eyes. And I was like, well, like, man. And even to this day, there's definitely a shortage of butchers, people that are, meat cutters, whatever they like different names, but that can take a calf and break it down, and cut it up. So that was a challenge. And man, I tell you, YouTube was my best friend. I had a guy that worked for me for a while, and I ended up having to let him go. And I was it really set in, right? Like, oh man, what have I done? And so I mounted a TV up by my cutting block and turned on YouTube. Got a side of beef out there and turned on YouTube, and figured it out. And so that was pretty challenging. It cost a lot of money. A lot of wasted stuff. Yeah. But he got the job done.
A lot of good lessons there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's like you're going to pay for your education, if you're doing it just by spending the money doing the wrong thing and losing money that way. Or
exactly.
Or you could go pay somebody else to teach you.
Yeah.
You're going to learn it.
Yeah, exactly. And I had a guy that was kind of mentoring me when I first got into preconditioning calves and stuff. And I've always heavily believed in, find somebody else that has done it 1st. Well, in this instance, ain't nobody has done it.
Yeah, you were looking, but you couldn't find them.
Yeah, it's like it's a blessing and a curse to be the first, right? And so I called this guy and just, I always call him about cattle medicine. Hey, this calf's doing that. What do you think I should give him? And he I lost my train of thought.
About the beef? Was he going to tell you something about cutting beef up?
No, it wasn't beef. It was what did he tell me? It was about Josh's name. Which this isn't live, is it? What was he telling me? That was like a cool point. I just went too far around it. You know what I mean? Anyway, we can skip that.
What is the meat market like? What's that look like? Are you getting a whole side of beef in and then cutting it up into your different cuts, or are you kind of getting it in big portions, or what's that
so we used to. So we've evolved a lot in the meat side of things. Used to, we would buy a calf live, take them to the plant, kill them. They'd ship the sides to me, and then we would do the processing from there. We don't do that as much now. We do, but you have to order a half or a whole steer. You get 24 ribeyes out of a calf, and then you've got, 400 pounds of ground meat you got to sell. And so just the portions of what was going out the door wasn't equal enough to make sense to kill a whole calf. So what we do now is we have good suppliers that provide us with top-notch stuff. We use local packers. We use other people that are doing what I started doing. Mm-hmm. And so we can just buy those primals from them. And then, we have the storefront and the means to make the money on, cutting it up and portioning it and stuff like that. Yeah. So still able to bring a premium product without all of the hassle. Mm-hmm. Unless you're doing a quarter or half or a whole, you know, and then we go and we do the whole shebang, like your old style butcher shop. We'll get the calf, kill it, and then we bring it in and process it and do all the fun stuff there, So.
Yeah, I think that's a big, a big need there is like not everybody wants to get a whole calf killed or, go buy enough freezer space or have enough or have the upfront cost to pay for a whole, a few $1,000 for a full beef. But if you can, get a side or have a local market where you can just go, you're getting the same quality product, but just go buy the cuts that you want and not have to get the others.
Yeah. No, it's a big thing. And that's been a challenge, logistically on getting everything in. And it's, it's fun to learn that, but it's kind of, it's like, okay, let's just get this thing done. Let's get it learned and get it. And so it's, I like I love doing the sides and stuff, but it's one of those things like, with the economy the way that it is. And I mean, people, and it's things that I never thought about, right? Like they were like, well, what if my electricity goes out? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's a good question. Yeah. Like, what if the power goes out, and you got a freezer that's got, $4,000 worth of beef in it? That's not going to be fun. Like, you're really praying that power comes back on pretty quick. Yeah. And so, yeah, we run into all that. And that's what's kind of, made us go, hey, there's a need for just that stake at a time style as well.
You're going to pay a little bit more, but you eliminate that risk and the overhead of putting all that money out there at one time. And then also having to go buy a freezer or, if you have a freezer, taking up that freezer space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think I don't know for sure, but I mean, I think that's what holds a lot of people back from getting the good local beef. That industry kind of got watered down, and from every producer wanting to sell their own beef. But I think there's still a need. Everybody wants to eat beef, but you got to make it convenient for the customer to get it.
Exactly. People are confused, right now, especially. They don't know how to buy beef. Mm-hmm. There's been so many. ideas and ways and options and stuff. You know, people walk in my store, they have no clue what they want, you know, and you can just see it on their face. There's like, oh my, like this is a store with just meat. And it's that reason, you know, there's been so many different options out there that it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, and so, whereas at Brookshire's or Walmart or something, there's just,
you just grab
steak.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Or you grab it. Yeah. It's just, you know, it's already all wrapped up. And, but yeah, people, you know, and shopping at a meat market's different. It's what we've had to do is actually transition people into shopping at the meat market. And that sounds weird, but when they shop at Brookshire's, they're used to getting, you know, ribeye, New York strip, fillets, where you come in ours and you can get a picanha or a tri-tip or a tongue or, you know, oxtail. Like there's just different stuff and they never, you know, I bet a picanha, you know, in Athens is probably now one of the most cooked pieces of meat that there is, you know, and nobody, you know, just nobody knew about it.
Do you think it's a lot of education on your end of transitioning people, educating them the different cuts and when you go in
for
there?
Sure. There's and we're still learning ourselves. You know, these packing companies, they come out with just so many different things, and there's so many cuts that are exactly the same, but they have two different names. Mm-hmm. You know, so even like meat cutters training people, you know, they're like an old style butcher. He don't know what a picanha is. A sirloin cap. Right to him, and you know the same with with the tri-tip, like it's a cap or it's it's a side of a muscle or something. You know they don't have those names for it. Well, those are just marketing names, right? Yeah. Somebody threw this thing on the grill and was like picanha, you know, and like this is good, and so they just kind of ran with it. But yeah, there's a lot of education and even on cooking, like the way people cook. You know, back to that, they're ribeye or strip. Filet, you know, like that's the only 3 pieces of meat and ground beef that you can get. And so when they come in our store, it's like, oh, there's more, you know. And so there's a lot of questions and things.
And I bet people like that experience of that small, real customer service oriented business of how a meat market or butcher shop used to be. Mm-hmm. We used to have one in our hometown, and it was a more intimate experience. You know, you go ask this guy, you know, what's this? And, you know, he can kind of point you in the right direction, maybe give you some advice and on what you might want as far as the cut and the size and how thick and all that. And then even give you advice on how to cook it. Like, hey, put it on the grill really hot, 2 minutes, you're done. Or you want to smoke this one, cook it slower, or cook this one on medium heat, you know. Just a more intimate experience, and it's an experience is what it is.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's what, you know, we kind of preach at the market is there's, you know, they can go buy beef anywhere. People can. There's a ton of options. But we sell an experience, you know, and education. We're even looking at kind of partnering with some colleges and stuff because, I mean, man, there's like this butcher deal is, you know, it's kind of scary. They're trying to grow meat in a petri dish right now.
Yeah.
You know, and they're not trying, they're doing it. And, you know, we're going to let them if we don't know how to process our beef, you know, and butchers are, I bet the medium age for a butcher is probably 65. I mean, they're all, like every one of them, you know, like there's no, I've yet to find.
It's one of those industries that probably people, you know, kids don't grow up wanting to be the butcher.
Yeah. And who does? I mean, you know, it's kind of, it's a dirty job,
but it's very respectable.
It is.
And I think, you know, we're kind of coming back to, you know, not everybody needs to go be a pilot or you know, go to college and be an accountant or lawyer or whatever. Like, hey, you could stay right here in your little town and be a plumber and make 6 figures and build a hell of a business or electrician or all these different trades, kind of, you know, boring businesses or whatever that we used to think. That's especially with AI and all that coming around, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You either need to be getting into learning how to use that technology or getting into these trades that computers can't replace.
Right. Yeah.
Most small businesses fail in the first 5 years of opening. There's a few issues that cause businesses to close. One is paying too much in overhead expenses. Two is not getting enough customer traffic. And three is not converting enough of that traffic into sales. If you want to ensure success in your business, these issues must be addressed. Check out the link below and book a call with me to see how we can help keep your business open and thriving so you're not just another statistic.
Because they're not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've got 3 kids and one on the way, and you know, people are like, "Well, that's great, man. Why do you have all them kids?" And I'm like, "Dude, they're gonna work for me one day, like child labor." You know what I mean? But that's where I think people and even America has kind of lost their vision on family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and not only the hierarchy of a household, but how a household should work after kids are grown.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to some guys, and man, I'd love to be able to give my son, you know, their first home.
Yeah.
You know, as a business expense. I'd love to be able to give them their first job. You know, they may be a janitor, but it's a job, and learn my business, you know, and hand them something that they can provide for their kids, and their kids can provide for their kids with. You know, we've gotten this mentality of, you're 18, get out of the house, get away from me, I'm done with you, you know, and I'm totally against that, you know, and totally opposite. It's like, no, I want you as close to me as possible, so, you know, that you can see me screw up and you can learn from it, you know, and you can take the reins when I'm, you know, laying on my deathbed and not, you know, didn't do all this for nothing.
That's what I've been listening to. I want to say it was Myron Golden that he talks a lot about. He sells in marketing and very wealthy, but he teaches biblical principles and relates them back to business. And that same thing, he talks about a story in the Bible of how it used to be where I don't remember who it was, but they didn't leave the house till they got married and they're like 40 years old. And he said that's how it used to be, was the kids didn't leave at 18. They joined the family business and then learned that skill, whatever that business was. And then at some point, you know, took over when the patriarch or matriarch or whatever got too old. And then you were also able to help them buy their first house and do all those things. And the family was a lot more bigger thing.
Yeah. I'm trying to talk all my family into coming in on one piece of land and just, you know, helping each other out. Of course, you got to get along with them, in order to do that. But
that's another thing to get away from that. But like, I want to say it was Andrew Tate, which he's controversial. A lot of people don't like him. A lot of people do. But he was I'm pretty sure it was him was talking about this. I can't remember what ethnicity this person was, but they worked at some kind of like almost like a medium to low level job. But this guy drove a Ferrari or some kind of supercar like that, very expensive car. And he's like, "Hey, how are you doing this? We're not getting paid that much." And he said, "Man, me and all my brothers, we live together and we all pull our income and we just have that one car, and they work as a team. And as one family unit, and then that's the way they're able to afford the nice things and everything."
That's crazy, but it makes sense. But I feel like a lot of people are just too, you know, maybe closed-minded or groomed into kind of thinking that old way, right? You know, that 18 years old, you get out of the house, and that's the way my dad was, you know. He's like, "Boy, you getting a job or you getting out?" You know.
It's hard to know. We're so accustomed to that and I think it's, you know, there's a lot of pros to that, to getting out there and finding yourself and stuff. So I don't know. There's different ways to do things. There's pros and cons of both.
Exactly. Yeah.
You also, after establishing the meat market, I believe the story you told me was you found, you got an introduction to a guy or something. You had somebody that kind of led you down another path also.
Yeah. So kind of my biggest thing that we've got going on right now is Trail Ridge. And that is a beef jerky company that we own, and we make beef jerky out in Grapeland, Texas. So again, out there in the middle of nowhere. I met Jay, probably about 6-8 months after opening the meat market. And his wife had actually called me and they wanted a tenderloin, and I said, oh yeah, we got one. And he said, well, hey, my husband, he's actually interested in processing and stuff like that, and would love to pick your brain on a couple topics. And would you be in, when we come in to pick it up? I said, probably so. And it was one of them days I had 1,000 things going on. So hung with the phone. I didn't think nothing else about it. I'm leaving for the day. As your typical business owner, I've got my hands full of stuff, headed to my truck, and I back into the door, open the door, and I see somebody, walking in. And so I'm like, well, I'll hold the door open for them. And for some weird reason, I turned around and I said, hey, are you Jay? And he said, yeah. I mean, he didn't say nothing to me, He said, yeah. And I said, hey, I'm Austin. I talked to your wife on the phone, and we, she mentioned that you had some questions and stuff. And I said, yeah. And I said, let me go put the stuff in the truck and I'll come back and talk with you. And I'll never forget it. We're sitting there. I was actually in the process of trying to buy a packing plant. And they wanted $1 million for it. And I'm sitting there, and, I'd been through the numbers, and, I'd been to look at this place 3 or 4 times, and I was in talks with the bank, and so I'm talking to Jay, and super cool dude, we just kind of hit it off. We're friends at this point. We've been talking for 20 minutes, and I tell him about this packing thing I'm looking at, and he said, well, he said, well, you got the money to do it? And I was like, what?
Kind of a personal question.
Yeah, I was like, well, that was kind of awfully, out there, dude. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I maybe, I don't know, if the bank will give it to me, and he's okay. He said, well, let's go get lunch one day. And he said, I'd love to hear more about it. I was like, okay, whatever, and I kind of took it, odd, right? Like, that was kind of an odd thing to ask. And so, so I get home, and, I'm telling my wife about the day. And I said, I met this weird dude, that was just like asking me all these questions. And I said, but, he mentioned going and eating lunch. And she said, well, go eat lunch with him, stupid. And I was like, no, like, I'm not going on a date with this guy. Like, this is. And she said, well, he obviously expressed interest in you. So, it would almost be rude to not, go and at least say, like, see what this guy does for a living, see what businesses he's into and pick his brain, and I was like, you know what? I like that. That's a good angle. And so I called him up. I said, hey, where you want to go get lunch? So we went and ate lunch, and we ended up going and looking at all. And, he said, hey, well, I'll back you, if you want, let's, if it makes sense, and so we went and looked at, I bet we looked at 4 or 5 different businesses, packing houses. We looked at a dog food place, like manufacturing facility, all these things, right? Because America's headed back that direction, to, I believe, to slowly but surely, to knowing where their food comes from, wanting wholesome food, and even, beef prices keep, getting crazy. And people are going to have to eat out of their own pasture. And so I was actually, Brooks Atwood's a buddy of mine. He makes my felt hats. And I was sitting there getting sized for a hat, and we were talking about it. And, man, I want a packing plant, and, I can't find one. None of, they're all running to the ground, or they're, none of them are, even feasible. They're losing so much money, yada, yada, yada. And he said, I know a guy that's got a place, a USDA facility in Grapeland. I was like, no, you don't. He was like, yeah, I really do, And so we end up, I called. I said, dude, give me his phone number. So I called him, and ended up meeting with this guy. Cool little place, out in the middle of nowhere. And it was set up just for making beef jerky. And so we get to running the numbers on beef jerky. And I'm, looking at beef jerky, just researching it. And I'm like, man, this is kind of a crooked field. Like, it's supposed to be meat, but yet it's got all this junk in it that I guess people don't care, or maybe they don't realize, or, like, I don't know, like, well, this is a weird deal.
Yeah, I never thought about it until, you just think it's just beef. It's like, good for you and all this. And doing the, being pretty much carnivore, that's like the only snack you're going to get. So I go in the gas station, I turn the deal around, the freaking ingredient list is like this long. And I'm like, huh.
Yeah. Like, something ain't adding up here. Like there should be one or two things in that.
Yeah.
And so, so we saw a need, saw an opportunity. And so we ended up buying that place in Grapeland. It's like, okay, now we got a plant. Now we need a product. And, beef jerky just made sense. Like I said, I've got kids. I am to the point now to where we don't eat, I walk down a candy aisle and it's like, I'm one of them weirdos, like, don't even look at it, children, like, keep moving. And it's this industry that's taught me that. And not because I've wanted to know, but I've had to know. We have a USDA plant and we talk about the Petri dish meat. People think that's a conspiracy theory. Well, I own a USDA plant. That is no conspiracy theory. It's happening. This 3D printed meat. It's happening. It's for real. Well, I filled out, I'll never forget filling out the application. That it was a question on there. Do you plan on growing lab grown meat and lab grown products? I was like, no. I'll never forget. I called my inspector. I'm like, this is the real application I'm filling. Like,
I got my meat out in the pasture.
Yeah, like I got the right piece of paper, right? And so, so anyway, so that time Trail Ridge was born. We had a passion, we had a goal, and we had a facility. And so we hit the ground running, man. A lot of late days up there out in Grapeland, formulating and testing and experimenting and all that kind of stuff. But we wanted a product, and that's what we've got that doesn't have all that junk in it. The tender beef jerky, it's not beef jerky, it's got so much stuff in it that it takes so much out of it, But I'll never forget, I called the guy because we want a tender beef jerky. That's what everybody loves. And so I was calling a rep, a spice and seasoning rep, and we were talking on the phone and about stuff, just getting prices and what we would need. And I said, we want our jerky to be tender. What can we do? And he's like, well, add sugar. I was like, well, we want it to be good for you too. Like, white sugar is not good at all.
Yeah.
And he said, well, there's a chemical that most places use. It's a tenderizing agent. I said, well, what does it do? And he said, but you got to have your procedure down pat. And I was like, well, what? Okay, like explain what that means. And he says, well, when you put this chemical with your ingredients in your meat, if you don't get that meat to, I think it was 100 and something degrees, say 100 degrees within X time frame, say 20 minutes, 30 minutes, all your meat will be gone. I was like, what do you mean? He said, it'll turn that meat into a pile of mush. I was like, you're joking me. And he's like, no. And I said, so do you sell this stuff? And he said, yes. And I was like, are you like, really? You sell this stuff and people eat it? He said, yeah. He said, a lot. He said, a lot of beef jerky companies, he said, most of them that have a tender jerky, they use this. And I was like, you're joking. I was mind blown. I was like, crap, this is going to be harder than we thought. Like, like, dang it. This is going to be a challenge. But what we do is we mechanically tenderize. And there's pros and cons to that. The pro being it pulls apart easy. The con being it dries almost from the inside out. And so we are that in between. You get that hard jerky that you can it's like, yeah, and you rip it and you're gonna chew on it for a while. And then there's like the tender kind. And there is other ways to put natural ingredients to make it a little more tender, but it's not like biting a steak.
Yeah.
And that's what everybody kind of wants when they're eating beef jerky. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. And so that's where we kind of traded off a lot of that super tender, trendy, texture for your health.
Not a bad trade.
Not a bad trade-off. And there are ways, and we're every day, man, we're trying something new, and other recipes and stuff like that to we're coming out with more flavors, and we're going to do a snack stick and stuff like that. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into beef jerky.
Yeah. Something you never think about.
Oh man, it's something I never dreamed of, that, little bag of, little $12 bag of jerky. It's like, man, but there's a lot that goes into it.
And I think it was on Rogan, they were talking about it, but how we were meant, or how we started eating meat, our jaws and our teeth, like everything has changed so much because we've gotten soft and gotten this tender product to where you don't have to chew. But like if you get how meat used to be, or grass fed, or the more natural meat, he eats a lot of elk and bison and wild stuff.
Yeah,
you're gonna get a harder to chew. You're gonna work your jaw a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's, he was talking about that over time. Our jaws have gotten smaller. Our muscles in our face have gotten smaller, and all that type of stuff. So it's not necessarily natural to have that melt in your mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Type of meat.
Yeah, and it's not. You see people now doing the jaw workout. It's like they want the jaw line. Yeah, it's like, oh man. Like,
you could
eat real meat.
You could just get some beef jerky, chew on that.
Yeah. So
yeah, there's different kinds, like you said, I've seen the harder beef jerky. The harder beef jerky I like, to chew on it, as long as it's got a good flavor to it.
Yeah.
Just it's hard to get any healthy snack. If you turn around, man, once I got educated on it, it takes a lot of options out,
It does, and that's what's hard.
In anything, you turn around stuff and look at the ingredient list, and you're like, I don't know if I want to be putting that in my body.
Yeah. Then they hide everything with the word sodium. Mm-hmm. It says sodium, and like, oh, that's just a type of salt. It's like, no, dude, there's no, so this chemical, there's zero. I haven't found any studies on what it does to the body, short term or long term. Right. Like, and the FDA does that, not the USDA, but still, there's no, it's like pretty much experimental, they're like, hey, let's try it out. Same with sausage and stuff, they put stuff in that's, but I don't want to ruin your outlook on sausage. So.
It seems to be that the big corporations can make so much money that they'll do something experimental, or maybe safe or maybe not safe, or whatever. And then at some point they're probably going to have backlash, and you're going to see the commercials. If you ate this kind of beef jerky in this amount of time, then you may be entitled to compensation.
Yeah.
Well, they're going to have class actions, and then $100 million, say, to paying those people off. And in the grand scheme of things, maybe they made $1 billion, and they have to give $100 million back. So it's not a small percentage.
It is. It's like, they don't care. That's what I was talking to my father-in-law about. I'm in the meat business, so I'm in the cattle business, and with cattle the way they are right now, and I'm sure there's a million different outlooks on all that, but in the end, unfortunately, the money always wins. Just like you said, the not morals are not the right thing, or but it's the money, and right now, cattle being so high, you haven't seen boxed beef prices change a whole lot at all. Relative to your $3,000 calf that they're paying, and that in my theory, that's they're squeezing all these. They own 80% of it right now. They're just squeezing for the other 20%. And when that happens, now what? But that's just again kind of the, it's in a lot of industries, in the oil industry, in the beef industry, been going on in the beef industry forever. We it's like everybody's looking at it, but nobody, it's like, what do we do? like going up against, Goliath. So it's tough, but it's a crazy thing.
It's a pro and con of capitalism. So you can go make as much as you want, but if you don't have any morals, then there's nothing that says you have to have morals.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, man, could we just, write the moral code and be like, all right, guys, now you got, but yeah, fortunately it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm. What's the future look like for Trail Ridge in the meat market?
Man, so the meat market, we're expanding. Trail Ridge, I just left some corporate offices up here in Fort Worth. So Trail Ridge, we're getting traction. We signed a deal, goes into effect August 13th, with a big distribution company. So they'll have distributors picking it up all over the U.S. and into Canada. So super cool things happening. This other Allsup's Yes Way, this office I just left up here, they're got some internal things that they're trying to get. They love the product. It's just getting it. But that'll, they're out west. That's West Texas and stuff like that, where a lot of those kind of stores are. But but man, we're going for the big dogs. I'm trying to. We have plans to expand the plant. Improve production. Of course, you can add some technology to the production line. Just as far as like automatic weighers and things that can bag it and stuff like that, that we'll be able to make a lot more of it, when these people start picking it up. So, but yeah, Trail Ridge, we're headed to Sefco, to Kim's, all over, we're as many places as we can get into, because it's a good product, and that's my passion, is I want to get this in the hands of people, and unfortunately, you got to meet them where they're at. Not everybody's going to look for it. So you kind of got to make it convenient for them. So that's where we're at with Trail Ridge. Yeah, in the meat market, we're moving into expanding. We are gonna do some more services, focus a little more on some processing for other people, wild game processing, stuff like that. We're gonna start doing deer this year, which is gonna get a little crazy, but. I'm just in this whole food thing is I'm pro. People call me all the time like, man, I'd buy my beef from you, but we kill our own. I'm like, no, keep killing your own. Or I buy from Johnny down the road. I'm like, keep doing it, man. Like that is what we need. It's not, you don't find me, find whoever's close to you. It don't have to be me. I'm blessed. If you do, I love it. But yeah. And so moving into the processing, we can help more of those kinds of people, and it gives us we're more multifaceted. We can, another little source of revenue, to help out during the slow retail months and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're fixing to triple in our square footage.
Cool.
At Flying T. Yeah. So pretty excited.
What have been your biggest challenges as a business owner?
Biggest challenge. Sometimes it's hard to see the end. That's what I use the terminology in the trenches. Because the business owning is not the big, huge, beautiful thing that everybody thinks it is. You're the first one there, you're the last one to leave most of the time, and when something goes wrong, it's your fault, period. There's no, it's your business, it's your fault. But I would say the hardest thing is to sometimes is to see that end, to see that light at the end of the tunnel, right? When you're an owner operator. Yeah, because you're in the trenches and you're, which I've been able to get out of that here recently, which has been awesome. Being able to kind of look up and go, whoa, like, okay, this is going to be cool. It's kind of like, being on a back road, but it's just, I would say that's pretty important, to stay self-motivated. And learn from other people's mistakes.
What does a typical day look like for you, being as you have multiple business and a family?
Man, so typically up early, 5:30ish. I've been reading a book lately. Typically I read the Bible, but I've been going through a book called Think Ahead by Craig Groeschel. If you're a man, you should listen to it. If you're a woman, you should listen to it. Great book. It's about thinking ahead. But so I'll spend my quiet time, about an hour or so in the mornings. Need to add a little working out in there, but so do that with coffee. And then the world doesn't wake up until about 8. I kind of get my list of things I need to do after my quiet time. And then, when the rest of the world wakes up around 8 o'clock, we start knocking out phone calls and, setting up meetings if we've got them. A lot of stuff right now is digital, so I can do a lot from my house. The plant, I'll head out to Grapeland, go to the plant. We're 6:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock, so I'll get out there. I can check on things for a couple hours there, close that place down, and then head out to head to Athens at the meat market. We don't close till 6. So I can go out there for a couple hours, check on everything, and then I try to make it home by about 5:30 or 6, and go in there and hug the wife, kiss the babies, and throw my phone in the trash can by that time. Yeah. So it's always moving, but the moving isn't what keeps me so busy. It's the phone. And it's, I love it, right? You can do so much without moving as much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just a lot of phone time. It sucks when your kids are like, "Where's your phone? Put your phone down, or put your, get off the phone." So it's like, okay, but yeah, and then really, yeah, dedicating that time. I tell a lot of people, like, get around the table, and eat, with your family. That's something that we do, every night. Sometimes it's our family and another family, or, and so, that morning time and that evening time are the two most important times of my life. So the in between it's just the in between.
Yeah.
What's
the best financial advice you've ever received?
Never step over $1 to pick up a nickel. That has opened my eyes to a lot of, just because you want to do something and just because you love doing it doesn't mean that's what you're going to do for a living. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that's what it's like, oh, that's my passion. Well, that's great. That may be your after work passion. And so I've had to learn that and kind of come to a realization as, when it comes to finances, that, don't step over $1 to pick up a nickel. Don't do something because it's fun or because it's entertaining, like aviation, great money making thing. But, you look back and it was never going to provide freedom, and that's something that I take, that I try to practice, is I don't, chase money. I chase freedom, and money happens to give you that freedom. Right.
Yeah.
So, that, and obviously you can't buy time. You can't buy time back. So use it wisely. With not only business dealings, but, people that you're with, who you're with, how you, it's just it's very, very sound advice, so.
Yeah. I think we get tied up into that a lot, like, not valuing your time, especially, being an entrepreneur and a business owner and stuff. You get to wearing all the hats and doing all the things, and you don't spend your time maybe in the wisest part. Like, maybe you got to get better at delegating and buying that time back.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Man, I don't have one. There's actually a little place that we went to the other night, and it's in Ben Wheeler. Man, It's good. It's probably got like 15 tables. Oh man, I can't think of the name of it. But places like that.
Yeah. Ben Willard's a cool little town. We used to hang out down there. So.
Yeah. It is. It's a cool, they got the Fords and the Moore store and all that stuff there. But yeah, this is it's been there for probably a year or so, but it's a cool spot. But yeah, those little hole in the walls.
Yeah.
Those but
every once in a while you get burnt, but sometimes you find a gem.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to risk it to get the biscuit.
Yeah,
so it's
that's what my wife says. She's like, "Oh, this place was terrible. You're never picking again." I'm like, "Well, it could have been good.
Yeah,
like you never know."
Exactly. Like look at the flip side.
Now we know not to go back to that place.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you? Find more about the meat market, Trail Ridge, all that type of stuff.
Yeah, so Trail Ridge, trjerky.com. You can, best way to support us is don't grab it out of a gas station, grab it out of a gas station, but if you can order it online. We do a weekly subscription discount, monthly subscription discounts, box discounts, things like that. And then the meat market, man, we're right there in Athens, Texas, so you can just Google Flying T Meat Market, and we'll pop up, or you can go on Facebook, type in Flying T Meat Market, and we do a lot of cool stuff with the meat market. We do discounts, and we do like weekly specials, stuff like that. So and Trail Ridge the same. We do holiday special discounts and promo codes, and you can sign up for our newsletter, things like that. We're doing we're working on it today. Our where does your trail take you? And so we obviously encourage people get outside, get outdoors, be active, and share it with us. Grab a bag of Trail Ridge beef jerky and take pictures with it. Share it. It helps us. It helps you. Get on our Facebook and Twitter. We're on Twitter, Trail Ridge. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook, and we're on Instagram. So TR Jerky. Yeah.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, I enjoyed hearing how you went from pilot, and now you're evolved into the meat business. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it. Y'all go check it out, and we'll see y'all next time.